The very air seemed to freeze around me the moment I stepped onto Bunnyman Bridge. "Jake, you've got this," I whispered to myself, clutching my camera tightly. Why did I always let my friends talk me into these dares? As if right on cue, my neighbor, Mrs. Grayson, appeared from the nearby woods. Her deep-set eyes always held mysteries, and folks in town whispered she was psychic. Today she had a worried look on her face. "You shouldn't be here," she called out. "Oh, come on, Mrs. Grayson," I said, rolling my eyes. "It's just a dumb dare." She approached, a certain urgency in her step. "I've seen things, Jake. This isn't about a dare. This place has memories and they aren't all pleasant." I sighed. "It's just one night. What's the worst that could happen?" She looked around, her eyes settling on the silhouette of the bridge against the dusk sky. "It's not just legends, Jake. The Bunny Man is a protector. He guards those who can't protect themselves." I chuckled, trying to shake off the unease her words brought. "Like ghost bunnies." She leaned in, her voice a soft hiss. "Not just bunnies. The spirits of those patients, they're here too, and they're restless." The very mention of the escaped patients from the asylum, the root of the Bunny Man legend, sent shivers down my spine. I had grown up hearing those tales, but standing at the very spot where the legend was born made them all the more real. Suddenly my flashlight flickered, and the distant hum of a lullaby echoed through the forest. The familiar song from my childhood, sung in a voice that was not quite human. Was this a trick? Was someone from the group hiding and trying to scare me? I felt my heart race. It was too soon for things to start happening. "Jake," Mrs. Grayson whispered, her gaze fixed on something behind me. "He's here, the Bunny Man." I turned slowly, my every instinct screaming at me to run. But curiosity rooted me to the spot. And there, at the far end of the bridge, stood a figure draped in shadows, a glimpse of a bunny mask illuminated momentarily by my faltering flashlight. The tales were true. My dare had just become a life-altering reality. Mrs. Grayson grabbed my hand, pulling me back toward the edge of the forest. "Remember," she said, "he's not evil, just misunderstood. Respect him, and he might let you leave." As the dark blanket of night fully enveloped the bridge, the weight of her words and the stakes of my dare sank in. What had I gotten myself into? Dusk morphed into an eerie, haunting night. The moon, hidden behind thick clouds, offered little solace. Mrs. Grayson's grip on my hand loosened as we reached her tiny, candle-lit cottage near the woods. "I never wanted anyone, especially not you, Jake, to cross paths with him." She sighed, setting out 2 cups of herbal tea. "Why?" My voice wavered, trying to piece together the chilling reality of the Bunny Man's existence with the stories I had grown up with. She looked into the dancing flames of the candles. "Because I've spoken to him." I almost spit out my tea. "You've what?" She nodded, her eyes distant. "The Bunny Man, or as I knew him, Thomas, was a patient at that asylum. He wasn't a danger to others. He was a gentle soul, sent there due to misunderstandings and society's inability to accept those who were different." My stomach churned with a mixture of fear and fascination. So how did he become this? The crash, the escape, it was chaotic. The woods became their sanctuary, but not all found solace. Thomas, with his fondness for rabbits, took on their symbolism, hoping to find kinship among them. The others, the ones who truly needed help, turned to him. When they perished, he was left alone, guilt consuming him, and he vowed to protect the spirits of this place. I looked down, picturing the gentle, misunderstood Thomas behind that haunting bunny mask. "So why the axe?" She smiled sadly. "Protection, not for him, but for them. It's not people he's after, Jake. It's the peace of the spirits he guards. The axe is a warning." I swallowed hard, thinking of the dare and the camera. "I need to retrieve my camera." Mrs. Grayson's expression darkened. "That won't be easy. By now he knows you're here. He's seen the camera. He'll be watching." My mind raced, trying to weigh my options. I couldn't just leave my expensive camera, but facing the Bunny Man, or Thomas, seemed like a dangerous gamble. She stood up, rummaging through a drawer and producing a small pouch filled with dried herbs. "Take this with you. It's a protection charm. It may not stop him, but it might give you a chance." Gratefully, I tucked the pouch into my pocket. I was determined to retrieve my camera and put this dare and the Bunny Man's legend behind me. As I stepped out into the chilling night, the distant lullaby began again. The wind whispered, and I thought I heard a soft voice murmur, "Respect them." I had a feeling this night was far from over. The forest felt different now. Each creak of a branch or rustle of leaves sent my heart into a frantic tempo. The protection charm from Mrs. Grayson weighed heavy in my pocket, a constant reminder of the supernatural danger lurking in the shadows. Suddenly, an owl hooted nearby and I jumped. "Get a grip, Jake," I muttered. But the deeper I ventured into the woods, the more the legend seemed to come alive. Shadows played tricks on my eyes, and more than once, I thought I spotted the haunting silhouette of the Bunnyman. As I neared the bridge, a cold breeze swirled around me, making the trees whisper secrets of the past. For a brief moment, the clouds parted, and the moonlight revealed ghostly apparitions dancing in the clearing. Rabbits, children, and figures in tattered hospital gowns seemed to be caught in an eternal waltz. Entranced, I nearly forgot my mission. Shaking off the eerie vision, I continued onward. But the bridge, which was in plain sight just moments ago, seemed to vanish. Panic set in. Had I gotten lost? "Jake!" A soft whisper floated on the wind. I turned around, finding myself face to face with a girl no older than 10. Her eyes were hollow, her hospital gown tattered, one of the lost patients. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, pointing towards where the bridge once stood. I need my camera," I stammered. She shook her head, sadness filling her eyes. "He has it, and he won't give it back, not until you promise." "Promise? Promise what?" She extended a hand, showing me a rabbit's foot. "Promise to remember us, to tell our story, not his legend." The weight of her request settled in. This wasn't just about an old legend or a foolish dare. These were souls, trapped in time, yearning for their truths to be heard. With newfound determination, I nodded. "I promise." As if on cue, the bridge reappeared. The girl smiled, fading into the mist, leaving only the rabbit's foot in my hand. With caution, I approached the bridge. There in the center stood the Bunnyman, my camera dangling from his hand. We locked eyes, and in that moment I saw Thomas, a trapped soul just like the others. Mustering my courage, I whispered, "I promise to tell the true story, to remember all of you." For the briefest of moments, the menacing aura around the Bunnyman softened. He placed the camera on the ground, nodding once before vanishing into the night. As dawn broke, the eerie trance of the forest lifted. The camera in hand and the rabbit's foot clutched tightly to my chest, I made my way home, carrying with me a story that needed to be told. But would anyone believe the truth behind the legend of the Bunnyman? Only time would tell. Returning to town after that haunting night felt like emerging from a dense fog. The world around me was familiar, yet irrevocably changed. My friends were waiting, eager for news of my daring adventure. "So, did you see him, the Bunnyman?" Mike, the most skeptical of the bunch, asked with a smirk. Before I could answer, Mrs. Grayson emerged from her cottage, her gaze fixed on the camera in my hand. "Did you make the promise?" she asked, her voice urgent. I nodded, holding up the rabbit's foot. "I did, and I intend to keep it." Mike laughed. "Seriously, Jake, you believe in this nonsense?" I locked eyes with him, the weight of my experience pressing down. "It's not nonsense, Mike. It's their truth." To prove my point, I played back the footage from the camera. My friends gathered around, their taunts and laughs dying down as the ghostly apparitions of the children, rabbits, and asylum patients danced across the screen. The final frame showed the Bunnyman, his eyes filled with an eternal sadness before the footage cut out. The group was silent. The once dismissive Mike looked pale. I had no idea." Mrs. Grayson sighed. "Legends are often born from misunderstood truths. The real stories, the ones of pain, longing, and hope, get buried underneath." Determined to right this wrong, I uploaded the footage online, sharing the true story of Thomas and the lost souls of Clifton. The video went viral, and soon people from all over came to pay their respects at Bunnyman Bridge. A memorial was set up, with plaques telling the stories of the asylum patients, ensuring their memories lived on. Each year on Halloween night, the town held a candlelight vigil, honoring the lost souls and their guardian. However, as the years passed and the legend became a distant memory, a new generation arose, skeptical and dismissive of the tales their parents and grandparents shared. Dares and challenges at Bunnyman Bridge resumed. One day, as I was passing by Mrs. Grayson's now empty cottage, I felt a familiar cold breeze. A soft whisper echoed, "Remember the promise." I knew then that my work was far from over. The Bunnymen and the souls he protected needed me. Their story, the true story, had to be told and retold, keeping the promise alive for generations to come. The years weighed heavily on me, my once jet-black hair now sprinkled with silver, my face adorned with lines that mapped out memories of countless vigils and retellings. Bunnyman Bridge had become a beacon for the curious and skeptical, a rite of passage for the young, daring each other to spend a night, much like I had. Jenna, my niece, approached her 16th birthday with a fire in her eyes. "Uncle Jake," she announced one day, "I'm going to Bunnyman Bridge for my birthday." My heart sank. "Jenna, you know the story. You know what it means." She rolled her eyes, just as I might have all those years ago. "Stories change, Uncle Jake. It's just a legend." Frustrated, I decided to hold a gathering at my place the night before Jenna's planned adventure. I invited all her friends, hoping to reach out to them through shared experiences and stories. That evening, surrounded by youngsters, I started with the footage I had taken so long ago. The flickering apparitions held them spellbound, just as they had their parents. I then recounted the tale, my voice carrying the weight of years and the promise I had made. Jenna, trying to appear unimpressed, muttered, "It's just a video, Uncle." Mike, now a middle-aged man with kids of his own, stepped forward. "No, Jenna, it's more than that. I was a skeptic once, just like you, but I witnessed the truth." His testimony, coupled with the accounts of other town members, filled the room with an air of reverence. The gathering stretched late into the night, with stories, tears, laughter, and memories. As dawn approached, Jenna approached me, her bravado melted away. "I'm sorry, Uncle Jake, I understand now." Relieved, I hugged her tight. It's important to respect the past and the promises made. However, the tale doesn't end here. A week later, a group of outsiders, having heard the legend, decided to test the Bunnyman's wrath. They went missing, and only their cameras were found, their final moments captured, a haunting silhouette of the Bunnyman standing guard. The incident sent ripples through the town, a chilling reminder that some legends, especially those rooted in truth, are best left untouched. And as for me, I became not just a storyteller, but a guardian, ensuring that the promise made on that fateful night remained unbroken. Life has a way of coming full circle. As the years turned into decades, I grew older, and Bunnyman Bridge became not just a local legend, but a global phenomenon. The incident with the outsiders had sparked renewed interest, bringing tourists, paranormal investigators, and thrill-seekers from every corner of the world. One autumn evening, Jenna, now a renowned journalist, approached me with a proposal. "Uncle Jake," she began, her voice filled with determination, "it's time to tell the world the real story. Not just as a local tale, but as a documented historical account. A book with your memories, our town's experiences, and the truth about the Bunnyman." It was a daunting task, digging up old memories, revisiting haunting sites, and interviewing those who had experienced the Bunnyman's presence. But together, Jenna and I embarked on this journey, piecing together the forgotten histories of the asylum patients, unearthing old records, and capturing first-hand accounts of encounters. The book, titled Echoes from the Bridge, The True Story of the Bunnyman, was an instant bestseller. It shed light on the tragic histories, the societal neglect, and the transformation of Thomas into the guardian of the lost souls. But more than that, it served as a poignant reminder of the importance of understanding and empathy, of not letting legends overshadow truths. In the years that followed, Bunnyman Bridge underwent a transformation. No longer just a site for dares, it became a memorial. The town set up an interactive museum near the bridge, educating visitors about the history of the asylum, the patients, and the legend of the Bunnyman. Profits from the museum were used to support mental health initiatives, ensuring that the mistakes of the past were not repeated. And then, one fateful night, as I took my usual stroll near the bridge, I felt a familiar chill. There, standing at the entrance of the bridge, was the Bunnyman, or rather Thomas. Our eyes met, and in his, I saw gratitude. Without words, we understood each other. I had kept my promise, and he had watched over us. The next morning, the townsfolk found me peacefully resting near the bridge, the rabbit's foot still clutched in my hand. The town mourned, but they also celebrated, a life dedicated to truth, understanding, and a promise kept. As for the Bunnyman, sightings became rare. Some say he finally found peace, while others believe he's still out there, watching and guarding. But one thing was certain. The legacy of the lost souls of Clifton and their guardian would live on, not as a haunting tale, but as a story of redemption, love, and promises kept.